Sadly, Eddie Van Halen has passed away. 2020, can it get any worse? Two of what I consider to be giants, to me anyways, in music have passed this year. At the beginning of the year, it was Neil Peart, and then just hours ago, we heard of the passing of Eddie Van Halen. And I probably can't add anything to the videos that have already been posted and the tributes that have already been made, but I did want to share a few thoughts. I, like many of you, was a Van Halen fan, and I'm 53. I was first exposed to Van Halen really listening to it around 1980, 81. I was 12 years old, 13 years old. And obviously, like the music, I can remember the first Van Halen cassette that I owned was actually Van Halen 2, which I loved. I listened. I don't know why that was the first one. I don't know how I even got it. I think I stole it from my brother or something, but that was the first one, and I loved it. And then I got Van Halen 1, and I loved it. And Women and Children First, Fair Warning, and I just, this was such a big thing to me to hear this music and to hear Eddie Van Halen. I had the opportunity to see Van Halen live for the first time in 1982 on the Diver Down tour. I saw them in Oklahoma City, the Myriad, and it was a phenomenal show. It was one of those that when I look back, that was, I could probably point out 5 concerts that were just unforgettable, that had a tremendous impact on me. That was one of them. But what I really want to talk about in terms of what I think really set Eddie Van Halen apart. I'm not going to talk about his playing. I mean, obviously he was a phenomenal player. But to me, the things that jumped out were not necessarily his playing. I mean, I shouldn't say that, because obviously his playing was huge. I mean, he influenced more guitar players than anyone else ever, bar none. But there's a couple things about Eddie Van Halen that I don't hear mentioned, and I want to talk about those. I have 4 points I wrote down here. One is family. Okay, you look at Eddie and Alex, and man, they're like this. And some people, and sometimes that's almost been spun as a negative. Oh, it's all about Eddie and Alex, right? But you know what? Good for them. Eddie was very much committed to his brother and his son when they brought Wolf in later. And you can talk about if they handled things wrong with Mike or whatever. That's for a different thing. But obviously family's very important to the Van Halens. And when you hear the story, them immigrating when Eddie was I think 7 years old in 1962, immigrating over from Holland and having nothing. Literally, he said less than $50 in a piano. That's all they had. No job waiting for them. I imagine that they really had to stick together tightly as a family. On the tune Big Bad Bill is Sweet William Now on Diver Down, you'll notice that's their dad playing clarinet on that song. He was a big band clarinetist. And is that a word, clarinetist? He played the clarinet. And their mom had goals of Eddie and Alex being, classical musicians. So family was very important. You see it in their upbringing. You see it in the way that their careers played out. And I think that's awesome. In fact, I saw a quote once from Eddie Van Halen where he said, all my friends would always talk about their parents, how they didn't like hanging out with their parents and how their parents didn't understand them and they didn't like their parents. He said, I never felt that way. I always loved my mom and dad, and I always wanted to hang out with my mom and dad. That's not the message you hear from a lot of long-haired rock and rollers. So I appreciate that. The next thing is, and I guess this is about his playing, but it's not just about his playing. It's about Eddie knew the rules. Okay, Eddie, I think, probably understands music theory more than a lot of us think. But he did not see those as rules. Okay? His whole approach is if you break down his solos, you realize, well, that shouldn't work. That's not part of that key. That's not in that scale. He doesn't care. And he makes it work. He had this abandonment, this fly by the seat of your pants and always land on your feet. And that's what I hear when I hear a Van Halen solo. I mean, it's just brilliant. Brilliant in the things that it does right, brilliant in the things it does wrong, and still sounds right. That's what makes him such a phenomenal player, I think, is he's hard. You know, some players you can break it down and say, well, he's using a Mixolydian scale mode here, and then he shifts to the Phrygian harmonic demented here, whatever it is. You can't do that with Eddie Van Halen because he broke the rules, okay? And he did it like no one else. Another thing, and I saw this when I saw them live, I was shocked at the sheer energy. I mean, back and forth. And he didn't play wireless at the time. He's got like this 60-foot cord that his poor roadie's having to follow him around and twist from everything. He's just all over, jumping up in the air, jumping, leg. I mean, I was just unbelievable that the pure energy that this guy had. And that kind of leads me to the last thing. Have you ever seen a picture of Eddie Van Halen where he's not smiling? Dude had a great smile, smiled all the time. And you sensed the joy when he played. That was awesome, to see someone who's the joy of the instrument. And I get the impression that he would look like that even sitting at home playing his guitar. That's just who he was, that smile, which we don't see enough of that. I could say more. That's all I want to say right now. But I appreciate the music. I appreciate the brilliance. And he will be greatly missed.